We are Life Church Livonia.
Hello. Life Church Livonia, how we doing? Huh? Look at you party animals over here. Party animals. If you are a middle school student and you are waiting, you're not sure when to go back for court, the time is now, my friends. Seize the day. This is your moment. Head to the back. Jeff is waiting for you. God bless you, all right? Well, my name is Alex. I'm on staff here at Life Church Livonia. It's great to be with you guys this morning. Thank you for the claps. I don't know who that was, but I clap for you too in my heart of hearts. If you have been with us over this series, this is the 5th week of our Immerse series. We've been looking through the first 5 books of the Bible, reading through them in our small groups together. It's a church talking about them on Sunday morning. So weeks 1 and 2, we took a look at Genesis. We talked about how this is actually God's story, not my story. And so God is actually the main character of the Bible. I'm not. And then weeks 3 and 4, we looked at the book of Exodus and looked how God set his people free from slavery in Egypt and how he calls us as believers today even to wait on him in these desert places we can find ourselves in. And today, we get to talk about the book of Leviticus. Yay! Now, if you've read Leviticus, I really love Leviticus. And if you've read Leviticus, me saying I love it, it's kind of like saying my favorite Beatle is Ringo or something, or like that Jar Jar Binks is the best Star Wars character. And there are people that like Ringo and Jar Jar, and there are people that like Leviticus like myself. This book, though, if you're unfamiliar with it, if you haven't read it and want to know why people are laughing, it's because it's really weird. It's kind of bizarre. It's very cryptic. It's literally a book of laws telling the Israelites things that they should not do. And as Americans, we tend to not like that. We don't like being told what to do. Our whole system of government is based on us kind of getting our way as the people. So it's something we tend to draw a lot of issue with. And on top of that, most of the laws are not things Christians today observe under the covenant of Jesus. And so a lot of the laws can feel really irrelevant. So why would God put a book of weird, strange, gruesome, irrelevant laws in the Bible and say it's important? That's the question we're going to answer today. But first, I want to tell you a story. I grew up at a Christian summer camp. People would come in the summer. It was just really wonderful, some of the best times of my life. My dad was on staff at the camp. And one of his jobs was to make what we called our ACE program, the Adventure Challenge Education Program. It was a program where he built a climbing wall, he built a zip line, a double zip line, hey-o, and a high ropes course. They were a blast. And so we would do these things as activities in the summer, or groups would come in and learn how to do teamwork a little better by going through some of these activities together. And so when he finished the climbing wall, I was about 6 years old. We have a picture of it here, I think. Yeah, look at that bad boy. Ooh, yeah. So I was about 6 years old, and he wanted everyone to climb it after he finished it. I mean, he's proud of it. It's a really cool project. It's really fun. So he asked me to climb it, and I was terrified of heights. I mean, until I was probably 14 or 15, after we had gone to Cedar Point every year for like 7 years, I was so deathly afraid of heights as a kid. And my dad knew this. And he said, hey, buddy, I want you to climb the climbing wall. And I said, no chance. No chance I'm doing that. And so he resorted to bribery and said, what's something you really want? And as a 6-year-old, I picked something I didn't think he'd actually buy me, right? I was like, well, Pokemon cards were really cool at the time. I was just coming out of kindergarten into 1st grade, and I said, Dad, I would really love a double starter pack of Pokemon cards with the holographic Blastoise. And he said, I'll buy that for you if you climb the climbing wall. And I was like, my plan failed. Blastoise is within my grasp, but I have to overcome my fear of heights. And it was a real challenge for me, but he kind of forced me into it. And he scheduled this day for our whole family, extended family and everything, to come and climb this climbing wall. And so the day arrives, we're all there, people are going up, and some people aren't making it, some people are doing really well, and I'm steadying, I'm like, okay, you take that route, that hold's not good, and I'm like really trying to overcome my fear with like understanding how this is all going to work, right? And my turn comes, and I got strapped in, get my little harness on, carabiners clipped in, cha-ching, and I get up to the wall, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm trembling. I'm so scared. I'm flooded with fear. And my dad's like, come on, buddy, you can do it. I'm like, okay, I can do it, And so I climb up maybe one hold, get all my limbs off the ground, and I'm frozen. I just can't even move. And he gently starts to try to coach me, like, okay, grab this hold here, use your legs, pull yourself up here. And now I'm maybe 3 holds up and maybe about 10 feet above the ground, and I start to cry. Like, Dad, I can't do this. I can't do this. It's too hard. I'm too scared. He's like, you can do it, buddy. No, you can do it. I'm like, Dad, I want to come down. I can't do it. What if I fall? And he goes, you won't fall. I got you. Let go of the wall. And I'm like, let go of the wall? Like, what are you talking about, man? Because I was 6, but I understand how gravity works, right? I know that, I'm maybe 4 feet right now, and if I let go, I'm like 2 or 3 times my height, up in the wall. I'm going to get hurt, and it's not going to be good. The ground is hard. My bones are soft. I understand how all of this works, right? And so I kind of latch onto these facts that are true, but were deceptive. My dad's like, buddy, I've got you. Just let go of the wall. And so after some coaxing, I gently lean back and let go of the wall, and I don't even move. I just hang there on the rope because all I could see was the wall and my fear of heights. But my dad could see the whole picture. He knew how the belay system worked. He knew how the harness worked. He knew how all the cams and carabiners worked. And he knew that I wasn't going to fall even if I let go. And I was amazed. And once I realized that I actually couldn't fall and I could climb this wall, this boldness filled me. And I was like, I can climb this wall. And so I got to the top. I got my Pokemon cards. Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a big deal. I didn't get a holographic Blastoise, though. I still remember that. It's a bummer. But looking back, I can see that my dad saw the big picture, right? Where all I could see was the wall, my dad saw the big picture. And not only that, he really wasn't trying to give me the gift of Pokemon cards. He was trying to give me the gift of being able to live above my fear and to trust him when I didn't understand or see the whole picture, right? That's the gift that he was really trying to give me. And the reality is all of us have walls, don't we? All of us come up against things in life that flood us, that fill us with fear, things that don't go the way they were supposed to. We get in knee deep into a situation and we go, wow, I did not see this coming, right? Maybe for you, that's a physical thing right now. Something in your body, something medically, is not going the way you had planned. And you are at a wall. And you feel like, I don't know how I'm going to get over this. I can't do this. Maybe for you, that's a relational thing. A relationship that looked so good when it started. A relationship that maybe you've recently lost. A relationship that's so painful and you long to be so good. Is a wall that's in front of you. And you go, man, I don't even know how God could ever make this right again. Maybe for you, it's a financial thing. Maybe for you, it's a mental thing. You're so flooded with fear and anxiety, your mind is more like a cage than it is a creative place of freedom. I don't know what your wall is this morning, but I know all of us have them, right? I know all of us have them. And some of you came this morning feeling crushed under the weight of your wall. It just takes everything in you to think about something else at a moment-to-moment basis throughout the day. And you came this morning hoping that somehow, some way, God would meet you and he'd help you through that wall. And I want you to know you're right. He is here to meet you today. He is here to help you over that wall. Jesus says in Matthew 5:3, blessed are the poor in spirit. In the Message, Eugene Peterson translates that as, you are blessed when you're at the end of your rope. You want to know why? Because when you're at the end of your rope, you can see that God's got you. When you lean back from the wall, you can see that he had you the whole time, right? And if you're here this morning at the end of your rope, God has a message for you. And he has a message for you in the book of Leviticus. Because we're not the only people in history to have walls. We're not the only people in history to come across walls. And the book of Leviticus is filled with them. It's filled with them for the people of Israel. And frankly, it's filled with them for us today. Because there are so many pieces of this book that are so weird. They violate so much of our American 21st century sensibilities. And I don't pretend to have all the answers with this book. I really do like it. And the Lord has shown me a lot of really beautiful parts about it over the years that I've really come to appreciate. But I certainly don't have all the answers for all the bizarre laws that you're going to read about if you're reading through the Immerse stuff with us. So my hope today is to do three things. This is kind of our simple roadmap of the day. I want to address a few laws in the book of Leviticus that they didn't understand, but stepping back from in the 21st century, oh, Kendra, you're the best. Thank you. Oh, water is my favorite thing. Oh, it's great, isn't it? What a buddy. What a buddy water is. So, address a few things in the book of Leviticus that they didn't understand, wouldn't have made sense to them in their culture, but make a lot of sense to us now in the 21st century. Then we're going to take a look at something we definitely don't understand that for many of us causes us a lot of fear. It feels like a real wall to us when we read any part of the Old Testament, frankly. And then the third thing I want to show us how the big picture of Leviticus reveals that God actually saw through all the walls that we come up in Leviticus for us today and for the Israelites, and that he can see through the walls in your life, and he knows how to get around them. So as we start, I want to start with just putting the book in context, right? It's really easy to read this book out of the context of the story of the Israelites and just go like, man, what a bizarre, weird book of irrelevant laws. But for the Israelites, this is part of their story, right? This is like someone's life. So doing a quick recap, they just got freed from 400 years of slavery in Egypt. 400 years. That is longer than America has been a country. Think about that for a second, you know what I mean? Like, that's so much time. Depending on the average life expectancy, that's like 7 to 12 generations of slavery. No one knew what it was like to be free for like 7 to 12 generations behind you. That's insane. So these people, we know today with our knowledge of psychology, of brain chemistry, of all these other things, right, that kind of abuse and oppression over that much time causes some serious psychological damage and really hinders people in the way they think about life and survival. And it puts people in a survival mentality instead of a thriving mentality. So God frees these people that don't really know how to be people. Right? They don't know how to function as a society. They only know how to function under abuse and oppression as slaves. He leads them through the Red Sea miraculously. Yay! He conquers their enemies, the Egyptians. Lord, you're so good. He leads them into the desert for the purpose of the promised land, which is this land where they are going to inherit freedom, where they're finally going to have kids whose only experience in life is freedom, who don't know what it's like to have the sting of the whip at your back. What a beautiful thing. And God says that this land is flowing with milk and honey. The milk part is a sign for fertility. It means that they're going to have cattle that are reproducing, that they're going to have food on the table, that they're going to be able to reproduce and flourish there. And the honey part, there wasn't sugar in ancient Mesopotamia. That kind of makes sense. That really shocked me the first time I heard it, actually. There wasn't sugar in ancient Mesopotamia, and so honey was their sugar. It represented the sweet treats of life, the special things, the things that make life worth living, right? And so he's leading them to this promised land flowing with milk and honey. And as they're exiting the Red Sea, fresh out the Red Sea, he stops them before they get to the promised land in order to give them the book of Leviticus. And it's so easy to miss the message there. What that means is that this weird book of laws is more important to God than the Israelites getting to the promised land of freedom quickly. Which means that if God just set them free and is leading them into freedom, this book is actually about their freedom. This book is actually for the purpose of their freedom, not just rando cryptic laws. And so in every law in this book that we don't understand, there is a big picture that God understands for the Israelites. And so, like I said, I want to take a look at three laws that we can see a little more sense to today that they might not have seen. First one I want to take a look at is Leviticus 17, 10 through 12. It reads, I will set my face against any Israelite or any foreigner residing among them who eats blood, and I will cut them off from the people. For the life of a creature is in its blood, and I have given it to you to make atonement for yourselves on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life. Therefore I said to the Israelites, none of you may eat blood, nor may any foreigner residing among you eat blood. This is one of those laws to me, so I saw a hammer recently that had a caution sign on it. It said, caution, do not swallow, on the hammer. And I thought, like, what kind of lawsuit did you guys get into that you had to put this on your product? Like, this is not meant for this, you know what I mean? And when I look at this book, this, hey, guys, don't drink blood, I think, like, who was doing this? They had to be like, that's actually, no more, Billy. You know what I mean? Like, what a weird thing. But part of the culture, and honestly this is still part of some cultures today, is in religious rituals and sacrifices they would maybe drink the blood of an animal. And part of ancient Mesopotamian culture specifically is they would believe that, oh, if I drink the blood of this ox, I'm going to get the strength of this ox. If I drink the blood of this tiger, I'm going to get the ferocity of this tiger, right? And it was a way that they would take the life in of the animal and believe that it imparted its qualities to people. And so it wasn't totally foreign. Clearly the fact that God has to address this means the Israelites have some kind of conceptual framework where this would be normal, right? And he's saying, don't do it. So there's clearly some kind of mystical, spiritual reason to why they shouldn't do it. This is clearly like a part of a religious ritual law. But there's another side to it that we in the 21st century, I think, really get, right? We know that viruses and bacteria that create disease are transferred and housed in the bloodstream. Right, we call them blood-borne illnesses, blood-borne pathogens. And if you can imagine with me, Israelites have lived in one ecosystem for 400 years. Their immune system, their biology, right, is adapted to this ecosystem. And if they go to a new ecosystem with new bacteria, with new viruses, with new animals, and they drink the blood of those things, and there's bacteria, viruses, whatever, that were not in Egypt, in the land of Canaan, the promised land, it could wipe out the whole country before they even have a chance to thrive, right? And so we may not get the mystical, spiritual reasons why they shouldn't drink blood, but the medical reasons to us in the 21st century are pretty clear. Like, this is a bad idea. But imagine trying to explain to an ancient Mesopotamian slave the science of blood-borne pathogens and illnesses. They don't even have, like, a conceptual framework to begin that discussion. But God already knows this is an issue. God already understands the science of it. He created it. And he's already going before them in ways that they can't even fathom to protect them and help them thrive in their newfound freedom in the promised land. Second law that, again, seems kind of like a no-brainer to us. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you had to say that out loud. You know what I mean? That was not a no-brainer to them. This is similar. In chapter 18, we read this. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, I am the Lord your God. You must not do as they do in Egypt, where you used to live, and you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Do not follow their practices. No one is to approach any close relative to have sexual relations. I am the Lord. Do not dishonor your father's brother by approaching his wife to have sexual relations. She is your aunt. Do not have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. Do not have relations with her." This seems like a no-brainer thing to us, right? Like, yep, don't have sex with your family, got it. That makes sense. It's actually illegal, right, in the United States. It's so gross, that you even have to bring this up. But to the Israelites, this was not a no-brainer. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are the patriarchs, the origin of this whole people group. They're people that they still today look up to very, very, very highly. Abraham was married to his niece. Jacob was married to his cousin. This was like normal. And actually, they were encouraged to keep marriages within like a family name so that family name would grow in power and in wealth and in prestige in the community. It was a way of like building your clan, if you will, building your political power, your wealth is a family. And so they were actually encouraged to keep the relationships in the family. But of course, we know today, the science of genes and DNA, that this is actually really unhealthy for people to do because all of your DNA and gene-like flaws get reproduced in this kind of closed-loop system that lead to a lot of mental illness, cognitive handicaps, developmental issues. But the Israelites don't understand DNA, right? They don't understand the science of gene research. There's not even like a way to describe this to them. You know what I mean? Like, there's not even a way you could even begin that conversation and have them walk away and go, oh yeah, I get it. Okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like, there's just no way they get this. But God gets this. And where they would see something that goes like, okay, that A doesn't compute in our culture, that it's like culturally offensive, and B, well, how am I supposed to like help my clan grow then? Like it feels like you're taking away part of how we create and sustain wealth and protection in our society, God. He is going way beyond them in ways they can't even understand to help them actually live into some freedom in the promised land that isn't going to leave them in a lot of disrepair, right? So that's the second law. Third law that, again, is a little easier for us to understand than it is for the Israelites to understand is the first 7 chapters of Leviticus. Don't worry, we're not reading the first 7 chapters together now. That's not the game plan, although don't tempt me. Okay, that was the first draft of my sermon. But we're focused. We're in it, okay? So the first 7 chapters of Leviticus, it starts off with listing all these different sacrifices. Listing all of these, like there's a grain sacrifice, there's a burnt offering, there's a fellowship offering, there's a sin offering, there's a guilt offering. And I want you to imagine you're the Israelites, okay? You come out of Egypt, you're like, this is crazy, we're free. You come to the Red Sea, you're like, oh my gosh, God, you're so powerful. You walk into the desert and you're like, for the promised land. And then you get to the mountain of Sinai and you get all these weird laws about how to kill animals. And you're like, oh, like the kid that gets socks at Christmas that really wanted like a bike. Oh, thank you. I'm really glad this is here. You know what I mean? It just seems off. Why would they need to do that? And why would this make sense to them? But we know, taking a step back, so 2 of these offerings are there for the Israelites to express their gratitude, right? They're newly freed. God actually has made them quite wealthy through giving the Egyptians, giving them gold and all these things, right? They have all this stuff now. They have property and aren't property. That's a pretty big deal, right? And so 2 of the offerings are just ways for them to say, wow, God, thank you. You've really blessed us. You've really blessed me. My life is totally transformed, and I'm grateful. And then the other 3 offerings are ways for them to repent of sin, are ways for them to make things right with God. But the Israelites don't have a deep theology of sin. They think the slave master is Egypt, right? But we know in the 21st century, 2,000 years after Jesus, as believers, that the real slave master of all of humanity is not Egypt, it's sin. And that these people are living in a fake freedom. They're freed externally, but not in their spirits, not in their souls, not with a renewed mind by the love of God. They are still totally slaves to sin. And so the very first thing God does when he brings them out of Egypt, this newfound freedom, is he's trying to help them fully live into it, not just in a physical sense, but in a spiritual sense that, oh my gosh, I haven't just been freed of the slave master of Egypt, I'm free from sin. I'm free from sin in this original old covenant paradigm. And that's why God starts with these 7 chapters of Leviticus just describing different ways to sacrifice things. Right? It's amazing. They have no theology of sin. They don't have a theology of the fall, of redemption, of the world. They don't have a theology of Jesus coming as the sacrificial lamb that will take all of our sins on our behalf and be offered up. They don't have any kind of that stuff. They're like a little baby nation that was just born. They're so immature as a people. But God sees it. God is going before them. And he sees, you think you're free. I know you're not yet. And I'm trying to give you this gift of these sacrifices so that the freedom you think you have right now will be true on every level of your being. We can see that because we live after Jesus. We have thousands of years of Christian history and theology that help us grasp how important this is and that this is actually even more crucial than their freedom from Egypt. The Israelites don't have that yet. So I want you just to see here that every wall the Israelites encountered in these laws, God saw the big picture and was taking care of things they can't even fathom yet. And I want to start with that. Just want to start with 3 things that we can understand because the reality is most of this book we don't understand. This isn't our time period. This is what the Bible would call the old covenant. We're living in the new covenant in Jesus. There are so many things that separate us from the pieces of this book here and all of these laws. Now, we're going to pull it all together at the end and see something really cool. But the reality is there's more we don't understand than what we do understand. I wanted to start with what we do understand just to show you, like, God sees the bigger picture here. And as we can see that he sees the bigger picture of what we do understand, we can start to trust him to see the bigger picture of what we don't understand. So here's a passage we don't understand, and that we in the 21st century in America especially really struggle with. So chapter 8, like I said, chapters 1 through 7 are about the Israelites getting all their sacrifices and laws. Chapters 8 through 9 are about the priesthood, which are the ones making these sacrifices, really getting established. And then chapter 10, this happens to two of the new priests. The Bible says, Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense. And they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Moses then said to Aaron, this is what the Lord spoke of when he said, among those who approach me, I will be proved holy. In the sight of all the people, I will be honored. Whoa. So God commissions these priests and kills two of them right off the bat because they do something he doesn't like. Yikes. God, I thought you were good. I thought you were for our freedom. Why would you set us free, bring us out in the wilderness, set up this whole system that's your idea, by the way, and then kill two of the guys that are trying to do it? Why would you do that, Lord? And part of what we have to step back and see in ourselves is the facts are a little confusing, the situation's a little confusing, but what really makes it scary is that we don't want to be Nadab and Abihu, right? We start to think of the ways in our own lives like, oh my gosh, Lord, that was so unexpected for them. Am I doing something that you're going to just come down hard on me that I don't understand, and what's going to happen then? And we start to let our fear kind of take over and write this story. And this particular incident, the incident of God killing people in the Old Testament, is one that we really have a hard time with and have a hard time understanding throughout the scriptures as people in the 21st century. Now, there's two ways to interpret this passage. Way number one is that the death of Nadab and Abihu were an act of God's will, meaning God wanted to kill them because he was frustrated with them, and he took vengeance on them because he could. And when we interpret it that way, it feels petty, scary, tyrannical even, and confusing. The other way to interpret this is not as an act of will, but an act of nature. Here's what I mean by that. I want you to imagine that God is like the sun, okay? God is like the sun. All of his goodness, his holiness, his power to create, to sustain, to set the people free, to split the Red Sea. It is just raw, unfiltered power. It is pure, holy, and strong. Now, if I get too close to the sun, I will die. Does that mean the sun doesn't like me? No. Does that mean the sun is bad? No. Does that mean the sun wanted to kill me? No. It just means that I violated some laws of nature that kept me safe in the presence of that kind of power. Because the reality is we need that kind of power in the sun to sustain the world. Everything that lives on earth is alive because of the sun. All of our ecology, all of us are alive because of the sun. The whole planet works because it revolves around the sun. And to make the sun weaker, because I'm afraid to move farther away, may make me feel safe, but it will destroy the planet. It may make me feel, so we do this to God, right? He does something in the Old Testament that scares us. In the Bible, it scares us. We come up against a wall in our life and we go, this pain cannot possibly be God's will. God, if this pain is your doing, I'm out. And we get flooded with fear, just like I was at the climbing wall. And we go, no how, no way, I'm not doing that anymore. And when we decide to live that way, we make this false God that we worship in our own image and our own preferences. And when we do that, that God may be safe, but he's not strong. He may be comfortable, but he's not sovereign. He may be, can't do that much damage, but he can't do that much good either. When we take that step back and we go, I'm not doing this, and we start to worship a different kind of God who would never do those things, who can't do those things. We may worship a God who doesn't have the power to hurt me, but he doesn't have the power to heal my depression either. He doesn't have the power to heal my anxiety. He doesn't have the power to overcome Pharaoh. He doesn't have the power to overcome sin or overcome death or set me free from the devil himself. We need a strong God to overcome Pharaoh, to heal our bodies, to heal our hearts, and to heal our minds. And to pretend like he's not as strong, or to take a step back maybe so he doesn't have as much influence with me, may make him feel safer, but it actually destroys us. And it puts us into a captivity, not sets us into freedom. Nadab and Abihu did not die because God didn't like them. They died because they ignored the first 9 chapters of Leviticus that was teaching them about how do you get close to the sun, live in intimacy with the sun, and not be burned. So God gives the Israelites this book of Leviticus not to create a wall they can't overcome, but to teach them how do you live with the God of the universe and experience his goodness and not let the nature of his power destroy you. Right? This is so much of what's happening here. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful analogy for this is in the Chronicles of Narnia. I love the Chronicles of Narnia. There's a story, so Edmund is one of the main characters. Edmund betrays the salvific figure in the story, a lion named Aslan, who's kind of all powerful. And Edmund sides with this woman named the White Witch. And Edmund finds out, wow, the White Witch is actually the bad guy. She's doing things that I don't feel comfortable with. I want to go back to Aslan. Edmund goes back to Aslan, but what he doesn't know is that there's these laws of nature, these laws of the universe, that now that he's betrayed somebody, he actually belongs to the White Witch. She owns, in a slave-like manner, the betrayers of the world, and which he is one of now. And so he runs back to Aslan, and the White Witch follows him and has this meeting with Aslan. In front of the whole army of Aslan, she is meeting with him and says, Aslan, you know that by the deep magic, that boy is mine. And Aslan says, don't cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written. The reader doesn't know what the deep magic is. These laws of the universe that now make Edmund her property, that mean that she's actually going to kill Edmund, and his siblings are terrified for his life. All these things about why the deep magic exists, who wrote it, how do they know about it, where do you learn about it, we don't know. The reader's left totally in the dark. But as the story progresses, you realize you actually didn't need to know, because Aslan knows. And he made it all right. He saves Edmund, he saves Narnia, and he vanquishes the White Witch. And when we come into contact with not just the walls in Leviticus, but the walls in our own life, just like when I was 6 years old at the climbing wall and telling my dad, I can't do this. I was fixated on deceptive facts. Gravity is real. The ground is hard. I am not hard. My bones are soft. Those were all true. But my dad saw the bigger picture. And he saw, buddy, I've got you. Yes, those laws of the universe are at work, but I am on your side. And even though climbing this wall is scary, even though climbing this wall is painful, even though you don't think you can do it, I'm right here. And I will take you up the wall. You don't need to know how to get over your wall this morning. You just need to know that God does. And just like me as a little 6-year-old boy, you can trust that your Father has got you. You can trust that your Father has got you. And he sees the big picture of your wall in ways you can't even understand right now. He knows the deep magic in a way that you probably never will, and that you don't need to. And we got to remember, you guys, this is for our freedom. This is for the Israelites' freedom, and this is for our freedom. So where is God calling you to obey before you understand? Where is God calling you to obey in the wall in your life before you understand? You're going to have walls. The question is just what you do with them. Where is God calling you to obey before you understand? As we close here, this is one of my favorite parts about the book of Leviticus. When we take a step back and see the book as a whole, we start to see how it's organized, and this is what we find. This is a literary mechanism called a chiasmus. A chiasmus means that there is a center, and then there's these mirroring themes that go out from the center. So we see in the beginning and end of Leviticus, there's a lot of ritual content about how to make sacrifices, what to do in the holidays that you make those sacrifices, what those holidays look like, what things you're allowed to sacrifice. In chapters 8 through 10 and 21 through 22, it's a lot about the priesthood, the mechanism by which these sacrifices are going to be this go-between between God and men. In 11 through 15 and 18 through 20, we see all of these laws about cleanliness and holiness. Man, that could be a whole sermon in itself. Don't tempt me. I was going to do that, but so good. These laws about cleanliness and holiness, purity and holiness, and how important that is for the redemption of God's people. And right in the middle, the thing that all the laws center around, the thing that it all comes down to is the Day of Atonement. And the Day of Atonement was the one day a year the whole Israelite community got together and they put the whole community's sins on one animal and sacrificed that animal. And that day, the sins of the whole nation were forgiven by God, and they were truly free as the people of God. And when we take a step back from Leviticus, we can see all these confusing laws, all these things we don't understand, all the walls in our life are actually revolving around the freedom of God for your life. And he is trying to move in you, and he's moving beyond you and through you in ways you can't even fathom, you can't even understand yet, in ways that are going to impact generations. We're still talking about this thousands of years later because this is the foreshadow of the cross where Jesus died for our sins and was raised to a new kind of life, free from sin and death. And that kind of life is offered to us today by believing in him. Leviticus is about that. It is about the freedom of God working in the lives of these people who don't see the big picture, but their dad does. And as we come up against our walls, friends, we don't have to understand. We just have to know that God has got us and he sees the big picture. Maybe today, you know you're not free. You know that there's pieces of you that are a slave to sin. Old habits, old walls that keep coming back up. And you can't get rid of it. You don't know how to get over it. And if that's you, I want you to pray with me in just a moment and receive Jesus' love for you. Receive his sacrifice and blood for you so that you might live into a freedom you've never known. And as we go into communion, one of the things God said in Leviticus 17 is the life of something is in its blood. And as we go into communion and we eat the body of Jesus and drink the blood of Jesus, we know that we're drinking in the life of Jesus in a new life, in a way that resurrects our own hearts and sets us free. Would you pray with me this morning? Lord, thank you so much. Thank you so much that you see the big picture even when we do not. Thank you so much, Lord, that you see the way over my wall and that I don't have to understand. God, give me the courage to obey. There's so much in my life I don't get. This wall is so hard, Lord. There's so many days it takes everything in me not just to succumb to the weight of it. But Lord, I receive your blood for me. I receive your sacrifice. And God, I choose to live into your freedom. Free me, Lord. I receive you now. I don't know how to go up, but I pray that you would just show me my next step and give me the courage to obey before I understand. In the name of Jesus, amen.